Awesome, guys. So to kick things off, I do start with the same boring ass question every time. Simple introduction. Who are you? And just a little background on yourselves.
I'm Woody. I sing in the band Polar. And I've been in the band 15 years, which is, quite a long service. And yeah, progressively just getting older in this ever changing world.
Yeah.
I'm Simon. I've been in Polar two years in March. Just been like very very thankful to Woody for bringing me along to the project, and ever since it's been fucking wild and brilliant.
Yeah. Awesome. So for people that aren't familiar, Woody, that's a really good kind of opening for us, right? Like, I think you guys have flown under the radar for a very fucking long time. What is it
Yeah.
now that feels like is fueling that fire and getting you the recognition?
I guess, okay, so like it's a good way to probably put this. Obviously, with the change in the band, we started pretty much at that platform. Once those guys had gone, I won't dwell too much on it. The relationships aren't in any good fucking state. So like, and I don't know if they ever will be. But I don't know why, but the music industry and like the band culture, there's real interest in tragedy in bands. I don't know why. Like in like if there's like some sort of turmoil or something break, there's this gravitational pull to it. And obviously we went through a change, and for a good 15 years Polo had been like quite a stable band. Like there'd been a member change here and there, but this was a very very big change. And I think once that went out, like that just opens the doors to like interest, because with a whole new change and a whole new band means a whole new sound. When you take a whole like demographic of a band away and you just keep the singer, and then a whole new band comes along, well, it's never going to be the same. So
Right.
I think that a lot of that interest has come in from the fact that there's going to be a big change, and that pulls eyes on you because people are interested by that. It has a real sort of like focus point on what you're doing. So and then obviously we wrote music that kind of fueled that fire to go with it. And I do agree with you. I think Polar has gone under the radar for a long time, and I think that the change that we've had and like the real like new energy we found with it, I think that's what's made the music more exciting, and I think that's what's allowed it to maybe pull it over that radar that we've kind of flown under for a while.
Yeah. Simon, for you, joining a project that has such longevity and whatnot, like how's that kind of almost like I'm sure a little bit of like an imposter syndrome, right? Like this isn't really, or maybe like an identity crisis to some extent. Like this isn't my project necessarily, but to Woody's point, with so many changes in the band, like it kind of becomes a new thing in itself anyway.
Absolutely. Before I was before I was asked to join the Polar Project, I was playing shows to bar staff and my mum, and half the time my mum wouldn't turn up either. So it was a massive change to be like, hey, this band's been going around, it's got a legacy, it's got fans, it's got incredible songs already written. You've now got to kind of like take that to the next place. So like Woody said, we had all new members, so we were just like, okay, where's this energy going? There was pressure, but also kind of like, we're not going to try and be like the other guys. The stuff that we were writing was like, this is us. There's always a lot of pressure for bands to have a consistent sound. For us, it was like, the Polar sound is like Woody's vocal, undoubtedly, just like what Woody is kind of like the Polar sound, and we're just changing the environment that he's singing in, and just being like, okay, what kind of stuff do we want to do? Okay, we want to do something that's like maybe a bit more modern, maybe like a bit more like that genty kind of stuff, or like maybe that kind of Limp Bizkit-y stuff. Like, let's do that. Like, let's not, bands get to a point where they're like, oh, it has to be this. It has to be this perfect thing. We're just like, let's just do all of it. Let's just write music that we want to write and hope that people like it. And we're quite lucky that a lot of people have. A lot of people have been like, yeah, this band's got new energy. They're not worrying about the pressures of everything else. They're just like, hey, new music, it's fucking cool.
Yeah. And, you know, maybe this is kind of for you, Woody. Do you feel like you ever ran into that issue where like there's almost a stagnant feel with it because people expect kind of that same record time and time again?
Yes, absolutely. I think what happened with that is Polar had built a blueprint of what worked and what would, you know, appease our fan base, and I think that glass roofed the band, because it just, even with everything, I was really pushing for this kind of like electronic edge in there, and I was like, you know, this is how the way music's going. Like, this is, you've got to add these layers. You've got to be, you know, in the market we're right into. It's evolving, and it's evolving very quickly, and like you can get really left behind quickly, and in if you don't evolve in that kind of period, and I was kind of really trying to angle some more like of that into what that record was, and it was just with the wrong kind of people, and it wasn't received well, or it was also seen as being too far left, you know,
Yeah.
like it would shock people too much to do that, which is obviously gave me the idea. It's like, right, well, if that was going to shock them, then we might as well shock them, you know. So like, yeah, it that we had to break the mold. I think the problem that we had with the last record, especially, is we wrote in the pandemic, and it was almost like we shut the whole world out, thinking we were being quite clever to write this record very internally, and it was going to be our like strongest release. Obviously, it hit every like bump in the road along the way, made the process very, very painful, and we weren't just taking notice of what was actually happening in the music industry and the scene around us. We weren't.
Yeah.
Our fingers weren't on the pulse. We wrote some very great songs on that record, like songs I'm proud of, but we were not. Well, I mean, we were a million miles off the pole. Well, so the thing is, if you're ever going to try and like be on people's radar, you've got, in this industry now, you've got to be doing the things that put you on people's radar, like that put you, like, make people gravitate to your band, and we weren't doing it. And you know, you have to take stock of that, because that's, you know, that's the fucking truth of it. Like, you know, like, and I think that's the problem sometimes, is that maybe in the past Polar had fooled itself thinking that it was in the right path and it was in the right trajectory, but it really, all it was doing was basically fundamentally appeasing the fan base, which you should do, but it was never growing further than that, because we weren't giving the music qualities that people were looking for or hungry for.
Yeah. Do you think, or maybe how do you think that bands like Bring Me the Horizon have influenced, especially in the heavy scene, right? Like the willingness for fan bases to start looking at that expansion, or, hey, we're okay with our favorite band kind of expanding their sound?
I think they're super important. I think if you're going to cross genres that heavily, you're going to need bands to open those doors for you, because that's what makes it easier for you to have those fan bases grow for yourself, because it's already been tackled. The issues, you know, that, you know, you've got to look at it like with Bad Omens, and you've got like Bring Me, like when they start putting that stuff in, it wasn't received like glowingly. It took time for people to get onto it. As soon as, but it was like a fire. As soon as that
Yeah.
fire caught, boom, it's gone. You know, like, and you need those bands to open those doors, because if they don't open the doors for you, you know, I don't think we're strong enough as a band to be opening the door, but we're strong enough to evolve in that particular like void they've opened in that particular style of music. So yeah, I think it's important those bands are around, you know, and you know, we've taken stick on these singles, you know, like it's, you know, it's been good and bad, and I recognize both,
Yeah.
because what we have done is we've written challenging enough music to get underneath people's skin, and if it's got under their skin enough for them to sit on the fucking internet and write fucking fake accounts messages to us, then, you know, we've done something right, because that's all that's doing, is helping our algorithm. I don't care. But the glowing side of it is that we've had some really, really like positive and supportive messages, and people enjoying the change,
Yeah.
and like, And I think, you know, bands like Bring Me have allowed people's like minds to open to that a bit more.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny you bring up like people making fake accounts and, you know, commenting or sending message, because it always kills me like how many times on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, you'll see people just dragging an artist through the fucking mud in the comments, and it's like all you did was help their engagement so that the algorithm's like, "Oh, this is popular content. We need to push it to more people."
That's it. That's it. There's no bad press. Like
Yeah.
and especially when you're relying on those algorithms to pick up on what's going on with you, you like welcome them. But like, yeah, I just think it's great because like Polar for me, you know, I've looked at this in such a wide perspective in the last couple of years, and like I felt we were doing, and I didn't see it at the time, is we were writing good music, and it was just going for people to go on there, like the YouTube thing, right? Love it, listen to it once, boom, gone. You know,
Right.
for people to go to the lengths and the depths that they've gone with the good and bad comments, they've had to listen to that song more than once. So, or
Yeah.
like 3 times. And if they're mocking it, they've probably shown that to a whole plethora of people. Like, brilliant, you know, like,
Yeah.
and you know, that's you know, that in itself, you know, that's the exposure that Polar wasn't getting, because we
Yeah.
were playing like we were writing good quality music, but it wasn't challenging to the listener.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to kind of what Simon said earlier about you know, the polar sound is your voice and they're just changing the environment. So Simon, for you, what's it been like stepping in to change that environment and have influence around what's this soundscape going to be that this vocal lives in?
It was, for us, it was just sitting down and just kind of thinking like, all right, like what are strengths and weaknesses? Like I'm sure Woody will say with everywhere everything, there was a huge push for that kind of stereotypical kind of shouting in the verses and then like the big kind of clean chorus kind of stuff. And we were just like, okay, but Woody, what are you strongest at? And he's like screaming and shouting at people. So brilliant. Okay, well let's get you lots of that then.
Yeah.
And it was just writing songs that fit the vocalist. You know, like if we were trying to write the operatic pieces and you know bits that it's just about complementing each other, finding out what your strengths are and being like, let's do that. When we were going through the writing process, we were in consistent communication with the producer who we work with, Jack Murphy, bouncing ideas off and having Zoom meetings saying like, okay, what direction are we wanting this to go in? We're all consistently talking about, okay, like I like this thing from this band, I like this inspiration, how do we incorporate that? And that's what a lot of the writing process was for these songs. And it was also just not having barriers. It was like writing a song and then not worrying that it's to this or it's to that.
Yeah.
Writing a song and thinking like, oh, we shouldn't do that. It's too dated or it's too 90s or it's whatever. It's just like, well, 90s are making a big fucking comeback.
Yeah, they are.
So why not incorporate that? It's like, okay, cool. And that's where We Won't Sleep came from. It's got that Beastie Boys, Limp Bizkit fucking attitude, which is great. And going to the comment thing Woody was talking about, we had people who say like, oh, I fucking hate it. Some people be like, I fucking love it. There are a few comments where people were like, oh, I didn't like it at first, but after a few listens, I fucking get it. And they're the best comments to me. People just be like, oh, I heard it and I didn't quite get it. But they was like, no, I want to give that another listen. And they're like, yeah, I've turned around. Like that's a huge thing. So yeah, with the writing process, it was just no bars like hell. It was just like, let's just write awesome music and not worry about what the perception of it will be. Obviously, everywhere everything was like very like safe and very just like, okay, this is what the album is, and like watching what everyone was doing and then not keeping up. This was just like, let's see what everyone's doing in this moment and fucking do what we want with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's kind of an important thing for, you know, young musicians to think about too. Like there's a very fine line between doing what somebody has done, doing what somebody's doing, and trying to get ahead of them. Like it's a dangerous line to walk, because if you get too far ahead of people, they don't understand it and they won't grab onto it. But if you're too far behind what's happening, oh, well, they're just trying to be this other band. They're just
it's
trying
been
this
done.
thing. Yeah.
And then that's where Bring Me kind of have, over the past like 10 plus years, they've always been like that front runner holding the baton, just kind of being like, everyone kind of follow this, everyone kind of copy this, which is great. Or I think love them or hate them, in the way that they've changed the industry. They've done what they want to do. They've stayed true to themselves. They haven't bowed to anyone else. And yeah, it's adapt or die kind of thing. And for us, it was just like, well, if we're going to die doing what we want to do, not what we think it should be.
Yeah, and I think that's super important, right? Like, authenticity is something I talk about all the time on this podcast. Like, if you're not doing what feels right to you, then you don't need to be doing this, like the paycheck, sure, if you get lucky and make millions of dollars, fine, whatever. If you're Justin Bieber, right? Like, do your thing. But like, at the end of the day, like, if you don't believe in the project that you're in and what you're doing, like, what's the real fucking point in doing it?
Okay, dude.
Yeah. Well, this is, I guess, the crossroads that I sat at. Like, there was I think Simon was the first person I contacted to join the band. Fitting for the this is our first interview together as well.
Yeah.
So like, first times, but like, there was a space of 12 hours where there was no one. It was just me. Like, literally. and all of that sits in front of you. Like, do you continue this? Do you want to continue this? Like, it was like we were in a low point. Like, that period of time took Polar to a real kind of low level, and that perception outside must have been seen by people that looked at our band. And like, I was just like, I'm not done. Like, I want to do this. I'm there's I'm not here chasing the pounds and the dollars, because there isn't any pounds and dollars to chase. But but I want to do this. But I just don't. I wanted to at least get what I kind of perceived and what these guys and everyone else in the band had perceived down on a record, because I think that's what Polar was missing.
Yeah.
And that to me is exciting. Like, to literally feel like I've been building this big puzzle for all this time, and I've been looking for that one piece, and unfortunately it's just been on the floor underneath the rug, and you lift the rug and then it fits. And it's like, suddenly I feel like I'm actually completing the puzzle. So, and that just leaves the door open to writing more music, because it's exciting again. And that energy and that excitement is shown in the record. It portrays in the record. It really comes across. And I just think that, like, the songs just are matching to the energy that the band had when it first started.
Yeah.
Because that's what got us on the radar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, obviously you can speak to this, the importance of finding the right people to surround yourself with, right? Like, the old guys in Polar at that time may have been the right people for what the project was at that time. But, as people grow and evolve and everything, like, it's okay to outgrow friendships and partnerships and whatever. So, like, talk a little bit about that importance that you saw in those moments of, despair, for lack of a better term, around the project, going, does it survive?
Yeah.
And going, well, who do I know that I can surround myself with that believes in this and wants to see it live?
I did this. This is probably the luckiest I've ever been without winning the lottery. Because
hey, I'm playing all the time too, man.
I knew Simon. We worked together in a music company. Simon had worked on pre-production on the last record, so he knew the band as well. Knew the history of the band, and just the perfect choice. Someone that I knew already and I had a very good relationship with, and it felt right. It was the right positive step forward for me for having the first person locked in. So yeah, no, thank you, Simon. Like, and
oh, mate,
but then
it's all good.
and then I then was like, right, how else do I do this? Now, luckily, the other slot in the person that I did know was our drummer Max. Max was a drum tech for Polar. He lives in Germany, and when we were in Europe, he was always on tour with us. Known the guy sort of 10 plus years. Incredible drummer, and was like, again, the shoe sort of fits. And then it was like kind of feeling like, everything's coming together. But obviously Simon didn't know Max, Max didn't know Simon, and it was like, right, okay, I'm gonna have this issue, I think, where, well, not an issue, but like I've got to like try and put these people together
Right.
like like a model. And then I was like, right, I need to get the last two kind of places locked. And all I can only describe it as is I found the musical equivalent of Tinder, and I set a profile up, and I just went scrolling, and I went scrolling. And it was I think it's called like Band Mix or something, and I was like, in my head, I thought this is the only logical way of trying to do this, because this would be musicians looking to be musicians. So I wrote this big long spiel, hi, it's Woody from Poland, this has happened, and I found Steph. And I messaged Steph, and Steph was in a band called As Lions before, and so he knows and has been in the band sort of dynamic before. Like, felt like a good sort of really good fit, and messaged him, and I got an instant yes straight away. Like, boom, yes, I want to do this. I was like, cool, this is actually working.
Yeah.
And by this point, I think I was 5 days out of the band splitting up, to then literally having a 3/4 band put together. And the last person was Bruno, and he's a very, like, as a character in the band, and what else he does within the band. He's our designer. He designs all of our art and all our graphics. But I sent him the message, and now I know him, and we are very, very good friends. He's quite a logical guy, and he sort of read it and was like, I have to think about this, and and I can tell you that he said yes, and I think that was recently cemented by getting a Gibson endorsement, which I don't think he would have got if he wasn't playing in Poland. So I think his his thought process was understood, but I think he made the right choice. And then, but at the whole, through that time, and carrying on way into like the positiveness and like the newfound energy, I still had to process what had happened. That didn't just damage like a band, damaged a lot of internal problems came from that, that are still to this day problems between people, agreements and things. And like, now the problems that kind of arise is obviously a lot of the ex-members live very close proximities and a lot of shared friendships, and not a lot of shared views or agreed views about the reason why I was taking Poland, and why it continued. Like, they saw it had its sell by date. I saw it was about to like branch off and create a new tree. So there's been a lot to process with that. But what makes everything so much better and brighter straight away is to have a very incredibly talented group of people that have come together and are now friends. Like, I guess a lot of these people would never have known each other otherwise, and we're going out and we're experiencing things together. And this is a tough industry, like on the financial side of things, especially in the last 4 years. But like, there doesn't ever feel like there's anything. No mountain is too high to climb. Whereas before, every mountain felt like it was starting to get scaled, and how far would you climb it? So like, it's a you get like the positives and negatives, and there's a song on the record which I kind of talk about that in, called Need Want. And it's about like what your needs and what you want. Like, I think in this industry, that if you learn those two things, you can really enjoy what you're doing a bit more. Like, if you think you're gonna need to do this, but you want to do this, and and you get these conflicting interests, and you're pulling yourself apart, and that's what it fundamentally happened in that period of time. And then, but you actually just want to enjoy it for what it is, with a really good group of people, and go and do stuff that not a lot of people get a chance to do. That's what I wanted out of it. So, and I'm very lucky to have found a a group of fantastic, great friends now, and you know, and we learn and grow together, and that's good. And I'm still learning and growing because, you know, this was just as much as an education for me as it was for everyone else. You know, like, so. But I'm very proud of the record we did together. This record is, yeah, it's pretty wild, and
Yeah.
yeah, so and I feel like confident with it. I didn't feel confident with everything, um, and that's because there was so much going on around it. You release a record without confidence, it's, you know, it's dead before it's even been given a chance to live.
Yeah.
So going into this like campaign being super confident is, you know, it's a really good feeling. It's, you know, the dark ages are over, and you know, and we've kind of silenced a lot of the haters on it. Yeah, and there were people, and it's, you know, as the singles campaign's gone on, you know, those kind of really spiking comments have just sort of died off because there's, I mean, there's nothing. What would you? For me, it's like, what do you want to attack now? Like, what? Well, because it's not. There's no point attacking it because it's not trying to be anything more
Right.
than you think it is. So yeah, there's a real like strength and confidence now, and it's great to have that. Like, and yeah, we've got some many more albums ahead of us, I hope.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
saying
I
this,
hope.
I did an interview earlier actually, and it was someone that had interviewed me on the last campaign, which was only probably a year and a half ago, and he was like, I'm going to ask you this again because I asked you this a year and a half ago, where you saw yourself in 12 months, and I'm very curious to see where you think you're going to be in 12 months from here. So yeah, but no, I feel I said it on another interview a long time ago as well. Like, this lives and dies the way it is. You know, I don't.
Yeah.
It won't change again. And because it, for me now, it wouldn't be polar. Like, this feels like polar now. But this, if it changed again, I don't think. I think it would lose its feel. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like the name is being held up so well by everyone now that we're all integral, crucial parts to this, like, mechanics of the band.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, you know, you made the comment about where people kind of give something negative and they just keep nitpicking at things, right? And at some point, it is almost a challenge of like, okay, cool. You said that we couldn't do this and we did it. And then you said we couldn't do this and we did it. Like, you're whatever you tell us we can't do, we're going to go out and do it well enough at least to shut you the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, like, literally. Yeah, we. To be honest, I welcomed it because I was like, I'd never had that before. I'd never had that kind of venom thrown at me, and
Yeah.
like, at quite a vicious rate, and like, I was like, this is, you know, most people would be like, oh, does it get you down? You know, it must be like pretty hard. And I'm like, no, I'm like, someone's had to sit there and write that. Like, to write words, they've got to think, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
and if I'm sitting there in their heads, I mean, who's losing the battle? I'm not sitting there writing them comments back. So,
Right.
you know, like, so I kind of welcomed it because it meant people were listening. It
Yeah.
was like, it's like the age-old thing as well. It's like when you play a show and you write something stupid on the rider to see if the promoter's actually reading it. Like,
Yeah.
that was like, those comments were just the indications that actually people are actually having to listen to this, and they're, you know, whether it's good or bad, they're making opinions because, and then they're having to be that opinionated. They've got to go online and put it on, like, in words. I'm like, brilliant. Well, someone's listened to that. You know, they've taken notice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the key is, you know, whether obviously you prefer the good things and when people are like, hey, this song means a lot to me, whatever. But at the same time, like the fact that someone listened to my music, my words, and it affected them in any way to make them want to go online and say, hey, great job, or hey, you're a piece of shit. Cool. It still hits you.
Yeah.
That's what I needed.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. It's acknowledgement. I think that kind of acknowledgement was missing. So I'm like, bring it on.
Yeah.
You know, let's see what they say about the album. You know, they've got 12 songs to a taxi. You know? They're quite limited
And
at 5. So
yeah, and that's what I wanted to dive into next. So great segue here. You've got the new album coming out November 22nd via A Rising Empire called Five Arrows. You've dropped a few singles off of it. talk about that writing process, that new fire, and just like really digging into this is what Polar is, and we're going to showcase everything that we're fucking capable of.
Yeah. So what did it kind of start? I'd say we did the record in total in about 5 months. We got given kind of our orders from above, and and they were feeling that this will work or has the potential to work, but your turnaround has to be quick. You know, you almost have to put out the fire behind you very quickly, and the way you're going to do that is with new music.
Yeah.
I'll let Simon talk a bit more about the riffs in the set because he did all of that. But lyrically, I had a lot to write about. So yeah. I was like in prime position to write a record. Yeah, I previously written a record which was all about surviving the change of the pandemic, and you know that was like quite like gritty and hard. And then like sort of that album was supposed to be a celebration of survival, which pretty much became a celebration of death. And then I had a whole like plethora of lyrics about surviving that, and so yeah, like the music was, you know, and in my head I was like, as bad as it sounds, I just wanted to make everything obsolete, and I knew the only way that I wanted to make that obsolete and leave that for where it is and what it did and everything it is in that period of time was going to be this new record. So I was just hungry. I was just like banging words. But yeah, Simon, talk about the music. Talk about all your late nights playing guitar. Like,
my word. So as much as I'm thankful for obviously the opportunity for Polar, I do get worked like a dog, but I love it though. I love it. So before we went on tour with Attila in that first year, and beforehand, me, Woody, and the producer we were working with had demoed like 3. I think at that point maybe it was just one song. I think it might have been Unkillable and Sharks, Woody. I can't remember.
I think it was we did 2, and then I think a third one came to just so that I could put my vocals over something.
It was House of Cards, wasn't it? That was the last one. Yeah. So we'd kind of demoed like these 2 songs, went on tour, and then we came off tour, and then we were like, okay, like the deadline to get the album like demoed and at a point where it's ready to record, I think was January, February. So the writing of the album kind of fell on my shoulders because I've got a history in production, and I can do it quite quickly. So it was very much okay. We need 12 songs, so I would wake up at like 7 in the morning, start, and then like right up until I had to go to my job, which was then 12 to 8, and then I'd come home, eat, and then there are some times I think I was writing until 4 in the morning. There were definitely like a few occasions where I did a stupid late night like that, and then rinse and repeat for like a long time, and writing songs, writing demos, sending them to the guys like, is this the vibe? Is this what we want? Like we ended up just categorizing it, just like red, not it, yellow, bit of work, green, that's good to go. And that's kind of what the main writing process was, just like firing riffs, firing songs, even if it's just like a little segment, just be like, what do you think of this? Is this good? Is this good? Are we there? And then the guys would send back their versions of it. They'd say, oh, shorten this, make that longer, change that dynamic here, blah, blah, blah. And then I'd do that. And then when we went on we had a UK tour in December, and a lot of the van journeys, like going to and from venues, was just listening to. I think it was about 40 song ideas that I'd written, and we were all just listening to them again, just being like, okay, we're all together now. Okay, loop number 1. Is this one any good? Yeah, kind of. Okay, that goes there. And then we put the album together in those van journeys, just us going between venues, being tired from the night before, or like just coming from a show, just like, cool guys, all right, let's listen to the album again. Like, are we sure about like these are the ones that we want to do? and then in January it was another Zoom call with our producer, being like, "These are the 12 we want to do. What notes, as an outsider, what are your notes?"
Right.
And then we settled on the ones for the album. Like the writing process was fantastic for me because I'd always been in bands where it was way more relaxed. I've always been a control freak, always. So in every band I've ever been in, it's just like, "Hey guys, do you guys want to write some music?" And they'd send something over, and I'm like, "Not that, more like this." Yeah, and that's just the way I'm wired. But with this project, it was a case of I'm not writing the stuff that, like, it's just for me. I've got to bear in mind what everyone's taste is. So like Bruno and Woody are hardcore kids, like through and through, and like from that like I said, the Limp Bizkit kind of era as well. Steph kind of likes a bit more like Kubla Khan kind of stuff. So it's like, okay, that's got to be in there. Max is like Bring the Horizon, like metalcore kind of stuff, and I'm a bit of everything, which is where the album came together. It's like, cool, like a little bit of this, like we'll put the hardcore stuff in, we'll get that really heavy Kubla Khan stuff, big choruses like Bring Me, and just mesh it all together. And Max was living with me during the UK tour, so I'd go to work, come home, and he's asleep in my little studio area. I was like, "Max, we're going to write some songs now." He's just like, "Oh, okay." And then we write more songs. Yeah, it was, I loved it was hard. I'm not going to say it wasn't easy. It was hard, but I wouldn't have changed it for the world to be in. Pressure makes diamonds, doesn't it? Yeah. And I feel like with this album, that's what we got. And when we even got to the studio, we changed stuff. We Won't Sleep didn't sound anything like it does now. The main riff was really different, and I think the overall vibe was really different. So that changed in the studio. We've got a song on the album called Sound of Violence. That was pretty much written from the ground up. We took what we had into the studio, and I think when we were all there, it's like, it's not as good as everything else now. It needs to change, and that was just changed on the spot. So the writing process was a lot back and forth, everyone's influences, late nights, long van journeys, spur of the moment stuff, which is all that energy that Woody was talking about. It was, it wasn't us all sitting in a room being like, yes, how can we make this bit more interesting? It needs, like sitting with like on a wall, it needs to tick all these boxes, it needs to have the right sample, and it needs to have big chorus. It's just like, okay, let's just fucking just do shit. Let's get loads of stuff together and like mash this song with this one until it works. Yeah. Or let's, like, it goes back to what I was saying before, just like no limits, no boxes, write good music, have fun with it, and just bring energy. The writing process was amazing. I won't let Woody do it to me again. So I've already started writing the next album. So I think I've already got 16 song ideas ready. So when he's like, "I need an album tomorrow," sign, I'm like, "Here you go. It's fine. It's done now." But yeah, no, I love the writing process, and working with our producer Jack. He's a great energy to bounce off. He's same mindset of us. It was just like, "Oh, what do you think, Jack? It needs a bit more pizzazz." And he'll go on his computer, start finding some things, and we'll say, "Oh, we want this kind of thing." He's like, "Cool, listen to that. Cool, get it for us." When it came to songwriting, him and Woody were like looking at the lyrics we had, looking at the space we had, being like, "Okay, that word should be this," and then it gives you more breath to hear. I think like the album was recorded in what, 2 weeks?
10 days.
10 days, like 12 songs, 10 days.
Yeah.
And that was crazy. That was like in at 9, you're caning it, but you still have the energy and the time to add these little flourishes, add these little sparks that will run over just to get this bit sounding really nice. Yeah, the whole thing was exactly what the band needed. Energy, good like environment to work in, nobody saying no, nobody trying to control the direction. It was all just like, let's just fucking get it all in, have a good time, and just bring that energy that the band needed.
Yeah. I love that. And the moment where you said, you know, you just kind of bashed two songs together reminded me, my dad used to always tell me, if something doesn't fit, you just go get a bigger hammer, right? Like we're gonna make it fit into that box one way or the other. You just got to bang it hard enough with the big enough hammer. So but I think there is something to that, though, that, like, you know, when you think about whether it's, you know, metalworking or whatever, right? Like song crafting, kind of banging those two pieces together, it forges it into the thing that you need it to be. So, like, hey, these drums, we know we want them in there. We're going to force them in, and then we'll work the guitars around it, or we'll figure out how the vocals fit over the top of that.
Yeah, we were quite clever with it. Jack is incredibly clever. I say we. I'll give Jack his credit here. Like, Jack's a vocalist as well as a producer, and he just understood that vocals need their place and the instruments need their place. And this is like something maybe that Polar hadn't been doing for like previous things. Is like flooding sections with so much guitar and so much, you know, like trying to overcompensate, or like that particular player had written a riff and that riff was staying there and it was no adjustment. Whereas this time around with Jack, he just like he understood that, you know, we would try and maybe overcompensate the section when he'd be like, no, we this is where the vocals are going to be. You know, we overcompensate in the areas where the music is. So I feel like that the vocal like production and the music production, they work very well together, and they flow. Like everything's got its place, whereas previous records, maybe things were just too oversaturated in sections that nobody had their place because everybody was trying to get to the forefront. But yeah, and like to add all the electronic stuff, I was, you know, that was a big thing for me. I've wanted to do that for a long time. I've, you know, been just curious what an American Nightmare song and Prodigy clashed together would sound, you know, for a very long time. And and that's just a lot of the way the world has started working. It's and I think, you know, we didn't want to copy other artists like electronic styles about just being like, this is really popular, let's put it on there, but like make it cohesive within the music we're writing. And I feel that this album then opens the doors for what we can do in the future with more like particular electronics, or like what we need to do within the hardcore, and where we need to go with the genre bending. And I think that it will open the people that are listening to our minds a little bit more, because then they're just going to be, you know, not like caught off, but like expecting it, and then you can really like push it to new levels. You know, the way it may be received going forward with new music will probably be a lot different to the way that this has been received, because the fan base are going to be a bit more aware that you are going to be doing things like this. So yeah, I think this is probably, it was probably the, for me, I said Simon says the hardest record. Maybe it was a little easier for me because I'd just done quite a hard record. So and you know, I think we'll work with Jack again on many more records. I think, you know, I think as well, like I think a band can be really strong once they find the right producer. And I've worked with some fantastic producers, and I've done some fantastic records. I'll never take anything away from it, and I've made some very good friendships with them. But for where Polar is and where Polar needs to go, I think Jack is the right guy for our moment where we are now.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing. You know, very often I think producers and mix and master, you know, people often get forgotten about. But if it's a really good producer, they're like an extra member to the band. I mean, they can influence the album just as much as anybody else.
Oh, exactly. And he did. You know, he's quite hot on the electronic stuff, and especially with doing the actual production side of it. And I was just explaining to him things that I had heard within that kind of style of music, because I've got a lot of friends that are in that kind of genre and they love that genre. And I grew up a lot with a lot of people listening to drum and bass, and I've liked it. But I was like, I still want to be a hardcore band, but I want to make it like vibey. I want to have the like. I mentioned the Prodigy, but that was kind of one of our influences on some of it, especially more like on Unkillable, because it was like the merge of like electronic and punk music, you know, and that attitude. And that's what I felt like that, you know, if you take that particular song as like a highlighted sort of song in it, that song's just got attitude, and that's what that band were doing. And it was like that was quite a big influence to us on that, because it was like they're really, you know, that's how we portray it. I sound very English when I sing as well, so you know, we had that kind of edge on it as well, and I can sound quite venomous with my my rather raspy English voice sometimes. So, but I think if you could start opening the minds of the people that you listen to your band to new ideas and new aspects of sound, then I think when we go forward with this, you know, I think people are just going to be kind of there to welcome it, opposed to like having to try and like. Sometimes I don't think sometimes, but like I'd start to get on board with it. You know, some people have been quicker than others, but I think our fan base our fan base is changing, and there's a lot of new people, and you know, there's probably a good core of people that have stayed with us and like moved with us through this particular period into this record. But yeah, there's a lot of new people, and all they ever know about Polar is what they're about to hit. So, you know, and then they'll probably learn about the history of the band a bit further on. So it's like it's good in that sense, because it feels like we are like not like physically starting again, but we are in a way that like this is like the new era, you know, this, and it is signaled by music that is completely different to what the band has done before. And we'll honor playing the old songs, like some of them live, you know, we'll keep those, but I think the idea is to try and, you know, play it set with what we're doing, because I think that's the stuff that's got the real electricity.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that writing process, were there any songs that came together for this album just way easier than they should have? Or, you know, to Simon's point about bashing shit together, like something that you just couldn't get right, and then all of a sudden it clicked?
The easiest song was the most recent single, New Mentality. That was when I was writing all the songs, because I didn't want to give them names to influence what Woody would hear them as. I just called them loop number 1 or like loop 2, just whatever. New Mentality was the third song that I'd ever written for the band, and the whole way through the process, I flew between, nah, it's not good enough, it needs something else, and people were like, no, that is really strong, and that kind of just like that back and forth. And it was only until the December tour that we were just like, no, that is a banger. It's like, oh shit, well, that was the third one we ever, or the third one I ever like wrote for the band. I think the one that kind of got maybe mashed together is a song called House of Cards, which is very thrashy, like hardcorey, but then it ends with this drum and bassy kind of like clean segment, which kind of takes you out of all that heaviness, and then right at the end throws you in with maybe one of the heaviest endings that we've got. Like that's a song where it was just like, okay, we want that big kind of Kubla Khan punch someone in the head kind of sounds,
right?
But this song kind of doesn't do that. And it was like, oh well, if we put this chill bit in the middle and then slow the BPM down, then we get into elbow swinging territory. So House of Cards for that was one we had to punch together. And yeah, New Mentality was one that was just like super easy. From my point of view, for writing like vocals, I guess for Woody, you were saying you had every word under the sun like read like. But I think vocally, like
I had too many words. I think.
Yeah, too many. Swimming with Sharks, you really like. I think that's maybe your, in my opinion, like the best like vocal performance you gave, because that song comes from such a deep place for you.
Yeah, I think it all like that one. Yeah, definitely. And thank you for the kind.
That's all right, mate. It's all right,
mate. They're like, because there's so many different styles of vocal in there, I had to be very like switched on to what style of voice I was using, and that like it's I kind of try and group things together. I'm like, right, if I'm going to use this low end of my voice a lot, or if I'm going to really go into my high end and my higher register, that's going to affect like the more clean singing that I have to do. So like trying to like juggle the songs, because our producer Jack would be like, what song do you want to do now? And I'm like, what song have I just done? Right, okay, I've just done that, and I've just gone at 110 miles an hour like vocally, so it's probably not good to do one more laid back one, because the tempo in my veins is at 100 miles an hour already. So like, yeah, just like kind of navigating it, but like it was incredibly pleasing to track with a vocalist, because he knew how to work me, and he didn't overwork me. There was points, and it was just like he was very good at reading my voice. After a day of us being sat going back and forth in a booth, and it was very like, and it was also like, I think what made it easier, like, not there was no real curveballs, is that he's very animated with it, and it was quite a theatrical part. Like we would be feeding off it, and it would just be, there would be quite a lot of banter between like especially explaining a line. Like he would just be like, I want you to do like more gangster, and then he'd start like rapping the line, and then it would just be like, right, okay, and then it would just, because you were suddenly getting this vibe, and then it would just like do a take, and it would just like bang, there it is. He was incredibly good at drawing that out. I don't think we really hit any major. Oh, the only thing that we had that it wasn't even a musical issue is we had a lot of problems with one of the guitars we were tracking. Do you want to talk about the tin foil, Sam? That's Ivan. Talk like this.
So we had one of the guitars had like an earthing issue, and we were just like, how the like. Well, like, we're tracking it to get this horrible buzz, We're just like, how on earth are we doing that? So the fix we had was wrapping tin foil around Bruno. It was Bruno when he was doing the lead. We had to earth him, so we ended up wrapping like tin foil around his big toe and just putting it onto the floor. So we had to literally ground him.
Yeah.
And then I think I had the same issue later. I did it on my hand. I think he said to me, like, "Oh, it's the same tinfoil I had on my toe." And it was, I'm glad I've just tracked a whole song with like toe fungus. Like, man, that's real nice of you, Bruno. But yeah, I think no real tech issues, like apart from cheesy feet on my hands. That was kind of it. Like what he said, the process was super smooth. Being with vocalist, where the energy's there, you're bouncing back. I've worked with Jack for nearly 8 or 9 years now. Like he's known me since I was 16, and I've known him since he was 18. We grew up in like a similar area together.
Yeah.
So I know his working style, which is why I recommended him to Woody. I was just like, if you want someone who's quick, easy to get on with, will take your vision to where it needs to be and beyond, this is the guy. Everyone got on well with him. It was just perfect in the way that, like Woody's obviously said, like getting all the musicians together. Wow, all these guys are getting on together and having a great time, and they're professionals as well. Okay, that's rare. That never happens. The writing process. No one's being over controlling. Everyone's listening to each other. Okay, this is going too well. Surely when we get to the studio, there's going to be a big blowout, and the producer's going to, strangle the drummer, and oh no, that's gone really well as well. Like it's been fairly kind of problem free. Woody might say, I'm actually it hasn't.
It all went to plan. We followed a plan, and the plan paid off. Even to the point of getting the guests. Obviously, we were lucky enough to have Rachel from Cage Fight on Paranoia, and a lifelong friend of Polar, who's been on loads of our records before, Ellie. She joins us on the track as well, because I think that kind of continuity I really wanted to like translate onwards. So like we got all the right takes, and like there was no issues, there was like no delays, and I was like, we're now 3 weeks away from it coming out, so nothing too bad can go wrong from here. Like unless they've got the wrong masters on those CDs, and
don't say that, man. Come on.
But it's allowed us to to be really confident in what we're doing with it. And we've only really played 2 songs live from that whole record, so there's a whole like world and journey to learn on that now, and the vibes we get from playing those 2 songs, I'm just excited to see what the others translate like. And it's now good to see like a new fan base jumping on board with us, and everything sort of rejuvenating. But I think if you like go lyrically deep into the record, it's quite a spiteful record. It's raw. I had some stuff to say, and yeah, I like what better vessel to do it with. But yeah, I just I think if we were going to write a pissed off, angry, genre bending record, then like lyrically, I think I had more than enough bullets loaded in the gun to write it vocally. Well, I mean, whatever people make of it, I'm sure it's the age old thing. If you think this song's about you, it probably is. Like say, but yeah, like I was very happy with the vocal performance I did, I guess, because um, they were things there that I've never done before, and they sounded good. Like
Yeah.
I guess 15 years down the line, you decide that rapping's probably the best way to start putting into your career. Like that you've got to do it with conviction, and like you've got to do it like with passion, and like otherwise it comes across that you're just putting it on there for the sheer hell of it. And I was very kind of like passionate about putting these parts in there. And like I think my voice has evolved from like everything into this record quite nicely. It's sitting in a good spot, and I think I think with the last record I felt imposter syndrome in the sense that I was doing stuff that I was out of my comfort zone, but kind of doing it to the point where it was good. But like, did I feel that was what should be doing my voice? Probably not. I was doing it
Right.
because I felt that there was a pressure amongst the writing process to put the style of vocal that everyone wanted, or certain members in that band particular time wanted. And this one, I didn't have that pressure from everyone. I was in a very like safe space, like reviews in my voice, that I didn't feel like the pressures that I had before coming in from different directions were suddenly like impacting how I was singing. I just was like, cool, I can go and do this how I want to do it and how I'm being guided by a producer. And I think that's given it a really authentic edge to what Hola's kind of done for years. And I think it's probably the strongest my voice has sounded. And I feel, and it's real. Like a lot of that stuff I'm writing about, that's real, like, and like, there's positives and negatives on that record. And like,
Right.
the positives are high and like the negatives are very low, but I think the story just had to be told, and it's I don't think it's vindictive to pointing fingers and like shouting about people, but it's definitely expressive how I felt about the situations I was in,
Yeah.
and continue to be in. But we just made it super exciting instead of like quite like, so I guess like everything like to this record is very somber. This is like licking a plug socket and then down a can of Red Bull compared to that record. So like yeah, and yeah, long may it last.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, one thing I always tell people, I've got a buddy that fucking hates when I tell him to do this, but anytime a new record's coming out, I'm of the belief that you need to listen to it front to back at least 3 times, right? Like the first time is just kind of that surface listen, see what kind of hooks you, where you're pausing, things like that. The second is like really investing into the music part of it and like seeing how much soundscape is there. And then the third is the lyrics so that you understand the story that's being told within those songs. For you guys, one of my favorite questions to ask when a new record's getting ready to drop is kind of a twofold thing. What's the song on the album that you think people are going to gravitate to? And what one is kind of that sleeper that you're like, man, I really fucking hope they grab this?
I think that a lot of people will gravitate to a song called All Hell Hiram. I think that you know, I go and I listen to that song a fair bit. It's one of my favorites on the record. I just think it's got not that I think every song's got everything, but that one, like, I think everything kind of works for me. One that I'm really hoping that everyone does go to is "The Hills Are Alive with the Sound of Violence," which is one of the most ridiculous song titles I've ever put together. But like you know, it works, and it's the play on words, obviously, and because that's just a bit different in the way that there's loads of kind of really cool shit in that song, but and it's just all over the show. But it's just like it's such a sharp little banger. You know, it doesn't give a lot of time for people to really catch their breath on that song. So I really hope people do kind of like pick up on that. And you know, there is a common trend with shorter songs now, and that is one of the more shorter ones on the record. So I'm hoping, you know, people kind of resonate with that.
Yeah. What about you, Simon?
I think the one that for me, Sound of Violence, I think is definitely one I think people will latch onto and be like, yeah, that one's a fucking ripper. But the song Need Want, I think is one that will become maybe a bit of like a fan favorite of it. It's one of the songs that's in a bit of like a weirder time signature. That's the one that Ellie is singing on as well. So it's got it's a bit weirder than everything else. It stands out, but the chorus is so the way that Woody's singing it, and obviously the lyrics he's using are just so like I'm trying to think of an example. You can just tell it's real. You can tell that it's like this isn't made with like it'd be like, oh, that would be a cool lyric. Just like this is just how Woody was feeling about like the situation, and he's just like screamed it out like from his absolute core. And that song just takes you on just like such a journey of what you need against what you want. So for me, like I think that's one that would be a fan favorite, and I think Sound of Violence will be the one that keeps bringing people back.
Yeah, awesome. That's honestly about everything I've got for you guys. So my transition to the end, I refuse to think of better questions. So I bought this game called Hot Takes, and it's just like shitty opinions and stuff. And we're going to see if you guys agree, disagree, want to expand on them, whatever. So
let's go.
The first one is that it is totally okay to pee in the shower.
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Go on then.
I mean,
we're in a band. We go on tour. We use a lot.
Yeah, that too.
We've seen things, man. We've seen things. Yeah.
Yeah. I think my thing was like with the shower, like water's running over you. It's rinsing off, even if you're getting it on yourself. But we're all guys. We can aim it down the drain. It's fine.
Yeah, you're aiming it forward, so it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I think it's totally okay. Let's see. Expiration dates on food are more of a suggestion than a rule.
Depends the food, really, because you know, over the years I've discovered is like obviously some of these like foods, the actual sell-by date is for the packaging, not the actual food.
Yeah.
So like a little bit of a curveball twist on that. But you know, if it's like chicken and dairy based, probably not. No. Yeah.
I've been a dirt poor uni student, and I've definitely like looked at chicken a day or two out and be like, well, I can't afford anything else, so that will have to do. Much to the detriment of everyone I was living with, being like, that fucking stinks. I'm like, I'm hungry and I haven't eaten, so leave me alone. I've suffered for it afterwards, but nowadays I'm getting older. I can't eat rotting food anymore.
I think it all depends, you know, like Woody said, some of it's the packaging, but I think it really comes down to like also how it was stored. Because like if you just leave the chicken straight in the refrigerator, like the bacteria is still able to grow and live and whatever. But like if you froze the chicken, that bacteria is technically dead, right? Like
yeah. And then you're heating it up over 76, you know, and then you're good to go. Yeah. So, we'll go with yes. That's fine.
Yeah, go on. Fuck it. Yeah. We're all animals here. It's all good.
Right. Yeah. Let's go with people should be compensated extra for their commute to and from work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know,
I wouldn't be
More-
making
more
the drive
money.
or riding this train unless I was going to work. So yeah,
Yeah.
fucking
Pay me more. Pay
Yeah.
me more, bitch. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
100%.
you lose an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon. That's not free time. That's going to work time. Give me money.
All right. And then the last one we're going to do, I think, is fitting for you guys and the album here. And that is that trauma makes you funnier.
Yeah, I generally think it does. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
it does.
Yeah, I think it 100% does. You know, like if I wasn't laughing, I'd be crying. So yeah, like definitely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't prescribe it to anyone. I wouldn't say you need to be funnier around girls. Go get some trauma. But
Right,
it helps. It helps.
Yeah, you're not quite funny enough. Go like have your parent die. Like, no, let's not let's not get that dark with it.
Give your mum some out-of-date chicken, and then you'll be really funny.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, go kill him with some out-of-date chicken. Yeah.
Awesome, guys. So kind of the standard outro that I do. I'm giving you the floor. Obviously, I'll link all the socials and stuff, but where can people find you? What's the best way to interact? What do you want to tell them about the album before it drops? You know, just lay it all out there.
Okay. Yeah, we are obviously on every social media platform, digital streaming platform underneath the sun. So yeah, Instagram /Polar UK, and that's pretty much the same for all of them. Our record 5 Hours comes out on 22nd of November. It is, I'm going to say it, the strongest work Polar's ever done. I'm going to go out and throw that one out there. And I just hope everyone enjoys and listens to it. And thank you for the very warm reception with the singles, and I hope the record does everything for what the listener wants.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. I've been kind of diving into you guys since Shane put you on my radar and everything, and I think from what I've heard, I haven't got the advanced copy yet. I'm hitting him up after his vacation about it, so haven't got to listen to it all yet, but from what I have heard, I would agree. Listening back to some of the old stuff, not that any of that is necessarily bad or anything, but you can tell there's just a new energy in what you're dropping now, and it's so refreshing to hear it. And it's exciting as a fan of music to see a band that was on the verge of death in a sense, and to kind of rise from the ashes and go, no, we're not fucking done yet.
Yeah, thanks, man.
We're battling, rolling with the punches, and thank you very much for your kind words.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. I'll keep you posted on when this goes live and everything. And I'm, like I said, looking forward to it. So let's keep it going.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Josh.
Take care.
Yep, you too.
Have a good rest of your day. Take care. See you soon.
See ya.
Take care, man.